So I'm gonna attempt to show you the entire Columbia area. Everything you need to know before moving here, literally everything. But the trick is, I gotta do it all in one day. So in 12 hours from now, I need to be right back here in this spot. So let's get going because I'm already running behind schedule. All right, before we skip the city and head to the first neighborhood, and we will circle back to the city later and I'll show you a couple things, but I gotta make this stop on this way out here to the Bull Street District. If you haven't been out here, really cool spot. Obviously the big highlight, Seger Park. You know, you got Fireflies baseball, a minor league baseball team. We come here every year, take the kids here. We sit out in the outfield, you get cheap tickets. It's always a fun time. Plus they do events. We did a taco and margarita festival here the other week. They do Christmas lights out here, but also out here, they got tons of restaurants. You got Public over here. Unfortunately, Iron Hill Brewery at the front, they just closed down all of their restaurants throughout the country, so that's gonna go away. But I'm really excited for up here, they're dropping in Gather Cola. It's kind of like an outdoor, they copied it from Greenville, but it's kind of like an outdoor eating area where they got different restaurants and like grab food and go stuff. Now, living out here is mostly apartments at this point. There were some real expensive townhomes in the back, but most of this is apartments. But really cool spot, great add to the area since we've moved here. If you haven't checked it out, definitely worth checking out. But let's head to that next neighborhood. All right, so we're getting started off with a good one. We're out here in Blythewood. I'm out here at Doco Meadows Park, and this is an area that I have a lot more people reach out, and actually a lot of people buy here, and I'll talk to you about the people that did buy here, but kind of a little backstory of this area for those not familiar. It's a very rural area. I mean, when it comes to the density and even the downtown, right? Sure, you got your grocery stores, you got Waffle House, fast food, wing places, things like that. But outside of that, it's a very small town feel. But recently, obviously, the Scout plant came. And for those not familiar, the Scout EVs, they're building them over right outside the area. I ran into a guy that's originally from Blythewood, grew up here, went to school here. He actually moved to Lexington, and he said a lot of locals out here don't care for the growth, the traffic out here. Now, with that said, the clients I have had buy out here, because this is where this area is unique. So yes, very rural, but they got a ton of master plan communities that a lot of my clients like. So 15 minutes out of the way, and all of a sudden you got places like Ashley Oaks. Now Ashley Oaks is now sold out, but you got Abney Hills Estates right on the other side. You got Long Creek Plantation, and then even further out you got Grand Arbor, where they got pool, pickleball courts, walking trails, all in this like rural setting, and they don't mind the 15-minute drive to get to grocery shopping and things like that. Now, of course, those that are like, I want a Target in my backyard, that's not this spot yet. I mean, your biggest shopping closest is gonna be Killian Road, which is 2 exits up. And you'll have, you know, your Super Kroger there, your Walmarts and things like that, but you got to drive even further for the bigger stuff. Now, the other thing I've had a lot of people like about here is, just to be honest, Charlotte is just over an hour up the way. So we don't have an international airport. We'll kind of swing by the airport later, but Charlotte, just over an hour away. So those that like the bigger shopping, like the bigger concert venues, the international airport, really not that far up the road. But again, a lot of people recently starting to buy in this area, you know, Doco Meadow Park out here where they do events and things like that. So rural area, but still a lot to offer for a rural area. But let's head to the next spot. And like I said, we are gonna be hitting everything. So after we hit this northeast side of Columbia, we will be heading over and doing a loop around Lake Murray, hitting everything over there. So that's what you're looking for, stick around because we will be hitting everything. All right, so we're out here in Camden now, and this is pretty much the furthest east we go. Now, with Camden, I'll be 100% honest, I've shown a ton out here. I have a lot of clients that like it out here, but none that have actually ever bought. And I'll tell you why they ended up not. But there's a lot of really neat things about it. So obviously you got this downtown strip down here, right? You got restaurants, all these cute little boutique shops and things like that. So a lot of people I have like that. You got these historic districts over here. Very nice old school homes. You know, they got some fill-in with some new lots. Now I tell people these aren't like the budget friendly, right? I haven't showed anything under 500,000 in these historic districts. Now you can find some new construction out here that's a little bit more budget friendly. As well, another perk, you know, right outside, if you're into horses, they got the Carolina Cup that takes place out here, steeplechase race. I know my wife has always wanted to go get the little fancy hats and do that. So that's right outside of town. You get some acreage, again, not budget friendly, expensive, but all that is why a lot of people like this area. Now, The reason I've had clients not end up moving out here is the commute. You know, just to give you an idea, we're probably 40 plus minutes to downtown Columbia. So if you need those bigger hospitals, you're working downtown, things like that, for some people, it's just too far out. But if that's not you, then hey, Camden may be the spot for you. But just keep in mind, a little bit smaller town. Again, being closer to town, not as budget friendly in these walkable areas, but you know, push out a little bit further and you can get some new construction with some good deals. But we're gonna start heading back towards you know, Northeast Columbian town now to head back to those areas. Like I said, furthest east we go is Camden. Of course I went the wrong way. On top of this. All right, so now we're out here in Elgin, and I took the route this way intentionally because Elgin, it's, just to be honest, very rural town, right? You got your pizza shops, Mexican restaurants, Food Line, IJ, kind of your budget grocery stores. And your major shopping, if you're gonna get to it, is gonna be either Northeast Columbia, where we're headed next, or back to Camden, where they have more shopping. You're about 15, 20 minutes either direction. We're out here, again, I have a lot of people that do buy out here because, you know, you can get new construction for really good deals. Now, I tell people this is where Blythewood was different. So these new construction neighborhoods out here, yes, most of them you're still gonna have HOAs, but you're not gonna have a bunch of amenities. Where in Blythewood, right, you have the pools, golf course neighborhoods and all that. Here it's just, here's some houses, you know, for a good deal. And so rural setting, and we'll talk about that more later when we head to kind of the rural side of South Lexington, because I think people don't know what to expect in these rural areas. So that's why I wanted to take you out here. Again, I have had people buy out here, but you'll see we're driving over to Northeast Columbia next, the proximity to that bigger shopping if you need that, but want to live more rural. All right, so now we're out in Northeast Columbia, and I've had a ton of people buy out in Northeast Columbia, mainly because to me, it's kind of that 90s, 2000s suburban sprawl, kind of like the area I grew up in, honestly, where, you know, you got the shopping malls, strip malls, master plan communities and all that, and a lot of people really do like that. You know, probably the biggest one I've sold in, Lake Carolina. I've made a ton of videos about it. They got their private lake in there. You know, you got parks, you got walking trails. Some areas you can literally walk your kids to school. You know, you also got Wood Creek Farms, and a lot of people like to say Wood Creek Farms is Elgin. In my personal opinion, it's not. Not to get too much into the weeds here, but to me, you're not really in Elgin where we came from till you cross to Kershaw County, where that has an Elgin zip code, but you know, you're still Richland County, you still go to Richland County schools over here and all that. But either way, Wood Creek Farm, that's another big one. Golf course neighborhood, bunch of different neighborhoods within there. You know, I've had a lot of clients buy out this direction. And then of course, like I said, you got villages at Sand Hills Mall. If you want to like start fitting in right away, Palmetto Moon, this store right here, really cool. They got all the Southern swag and signs that you put up so people think that you're from the area even though you're not. Now, people will come in here and say, yeah, there's a bunch of vacancies in this mall. Don't get me wrong. I've come out here a bunch of times, you know, gone shopping at the Belk. I think I had to get some shirts over here. They were out on the one by our side of town. Obviously, you got all these shops in here, but there is some vacancies in parts of this town. So like I said, the people that like it are the ones that like that traditional suburban sprawl that you get. But some people, it just feels too busy because it's very much, like I said, suburban sprawl where there's no stone unturned. Everywhere you go, there's homes, shopping malls, and it just keeps growing, creates tons of traffic and things like that. So a lot of people buy out here, but you know, just as many, it's not for them. But we'll keep going because there may be another spot that is for you that we just haven't hit yet. All right, so we're out here in Forest Acres, and Forest Acres is one of the first in-town neighborhoods that I'm showing you that I like to call the hidden gems that the locals are hiding from you. You know, they're the ones on social media that are like, no, you need to go to Lexington. You know, you don't want to live in Columbia. But everybody that lives over here, they'll tell you they love it, right? If you watch my interview series, there's people that live over here and they absolutely love it. And there's another one I'm going to show you that's a little bit more walkable than Forest Acres, but Forest Acres, this side of town, you know, you go out of this spot here where, you know, you got gyms, you got ice cream shops, you got our first Trader Joe's. They're supposedly adding another one, restaurants and things like that. And a lot of people love their little downtown area here and all the shops and restaurants in the area. But realistically, the neighborhoods too, because you're talking about that old school charm and character that a lot of people ask for, that, you know, these newer neighborhoods just can't replicate. And you get a lot of that over here in Forest Acres. Now this, as well as the other area we're hit, I tell people, this isn't like a cheap area, you know, very high priced when it comes to it. And if you send me a house, you're like, hey, Brendan, I found one over there that's 200,000. There's probably a reason for it, is the best example I can give. It doesn't just need paint and carpet. You're good to go if it's 200,000 in this area. There's a reason. Prices are much higher here because of that desire for these areas. But again, there's another area I'm going to take you to in town as well that is a little bit more walkable, because I know some of you like that. Where here, you know, you drive to these complexes and you can walk around, grab coffee, grab ice cream, do all this stuff, hang out here on the patio, have a burger at Bad Daddy's Burger and all that. But yeah, Forest Acres, hot spot for sure that they're hiding from you. But let's continue on.
Hey, I just met you and this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe.
You can hit us up on our website too. That's cool as well. Perfect timing, right? All right, so now we're out in Hopkins, and I actually just came to the grocery store out here because one of the interesting things about Hopkins I tell people is there's no like downtown Hopkins. If you go to downtown Hopkins, there's nothing really there. Most of your main shopping in Hopkins is actually going to be back in Southeast Columbia, you know, out towards the Dorn, VA, over by Capitol View, kind of an older established area, Southeast Columbia. Now, recently there was an article came out that said this is the next Lexington, and I, just being honest, I don't agree with it. Maybe the next Gilbert, but without Lake Murray, because realistically, you know, there's no Lake Murray. Like I said, there's no downtown except for going back to Columbia. It's a lot of farmland, very rural out here. You know, there's a lot of subdivisions popping up, and I don't know if that's why they're saying it's the next Lexington, because there's a lot of growth coming out this way. And I have had clients out here because there's a couple reasons I'll talk to you about it. One, obviously, like I said, proximity to downtown, close to the Dorn, VA. You're also proximity to Fort Jackson, right around the corner. As well, we have clients, this is the furthest east we go, this direction, southeast. You have Shaw Air Force Base out in Sumter. We don't go out that direction, but I've had clients that were stationed in Shaw, but they actually stayed out this direction because it's kind of, you know, halfway in between Columbia and Sumter area. And so there's reasons that people come out this area, but also because your money kind of goes further, right? Like I said, a lot more new construction neighborhoods popping up out here, and they're really budget friendly, to be honest. Now, again, unlike Lexington and Blythewood, you're not seeing these kind of big, extensive neighborhoods. You know, they might have a community pool, but really what a lot of people like to call the cookie cutter subdivisions, you know, keep those homes at a budget for people to buy. So that's where I say, no, not really like Lexington, but there are a lot of perks to it that I have had people buy out this direction. But let's start heading back again towards town again. So you some of those more in-town classics before we head over to actual Lake Murray, Lexington, and all those areas. So it wouldn't be a Columbia tour if we didn't stop by Williams-Brice Stadium. Now look, if you haven't been to a game, trust me when I say do it. Look, I grew up on the West Coast and I was a Miami Dolphin fan. I never really cared about college. People ask how I became a Miami Dolphin fan. That's what Dolphins as a kid, so it just kind of happened. But I'd been to a UCLA game with some friends. I've been to Dodger games, Kings game, and things like that. And everyone's like, oh, you gotta go to a Gamecocks game. And we finally did, and let me tell you, I became obsessed. It feels like being a Dolphins fan because it's always a rebuilding year, but it is electric in that stadium. They always talk about how wild this stadium is, and trust me when I say it was definitely experience, and now we've become fans, and every year we try and go. But another thing I want to point out, thank goodness it was happening right now, otherwise I would completely forgot. Right across the street, you have the South Carolina State Fairgrounds. The fair is actually going on right now. Now, outside of that, they do conventions throughout the year. We've been to some, you know, home and garden shows and things like that out there, but they do have the state fair right across the street. Now, the other cool thing about Williams-Brice that I'm excited for and hope it comes to fruition is they own some land on the other side of the stadium. And their intent, they say, is to build it out like, if you ever been to Atlanta, the Battery, where they have housing down there, restaurants, shops, and all this stuff, hotels, where it's just like this whole thing. So it's really cool. The other question I get asked about a lot because of this is, hey, is it that big of a college town? Like, some people are coming from college town where it just overwhelms the whole area. Yes and no. I mean, you go downtown, and we'll go down there later, and you got, yes, a lot of college housing down there. But in the same accord, you got the state capitol. So you got a lot of government contractors, you got tons of hospitals out here. So even though University of South Carolina is a big footprint in this area, it doesn't overwhelm it where it just feels like a college area all the time. You move out in the suburbs and you wouldn't, like, it just kind of, outside of people wearing their Gamecock jerseys and flying their flags, it doesn't feel like it. So that's where I say yes and no. And it's kind of a cool vibe because you're walking downtown and all of a sudden it's a college student passing you, and then it's an attorney, and then it's a government employee. Like, it's just a kind of a mixed vibe. So yes and no, college town for sure. You know it exists, but it doesn't overwhelm the entire city. All right, so we're out here at 5 Points. Oh, Brandon, I've heard 5 Points is dangerous, right? I get it. So you got college housing right on this other side. So don't get me wrong, I guarantee at night, some college kids get drunk, come over here and do silly things. I was young once too. But it's actually a really cool spot if you come down here. And the main reason I wanted to come down here is some of these housing right behind you. I was talking about those in-town classics, and I'm gonna switch it up. I think we got time. I'm gonna actually loop it to show you, to give you better perspective. But while we're down here, let me just show you. So, I mean, you got tons of high-rated restaurants over here, shopping, and so much more. Cute little district over here. High-end restaurant up there, Saluta's, it's really good. I did a video and interview, and this guy said the Toasty Hotspot right around the corner is phenomenal. So a lot of really cool places. Military, can you hear it? Can you hear the jet? Sound of freedom, right? But either way, let me go loop the area, and I'll talk about it as we loop it, because I think that'll give better perspective. Because like I said, there's some in-town districts over here that are really some hidden gems. And if I drive it, you'll get a better perspective, and I'll talk through it as I drive through. So let's do that versus me trying to explain it while sitting over here in 5 Points. All right, let me pause Miley Cyrus here. But so this is what I was talking about, right? You got this district out here, walkable district, shops, Cantina 76 here on the left, really good if you haven't tried it, right? So you got this whole area out here, and let's turn right, and I'm gonna pull back in here, and this is gonna be the Shandon neighborhood. So we pull back here, and you can kind of already see it, right? This older historic district, kind of like you got over in Forest Acres, homes with character and such like that. So this is one of those areas that, right, it's truly walkable, right? You live right here, you get on your sidewalk and you walk out and you can grab dinner at Cantina 76, living the dream, right? And so that's why a lot of people like this area. And it's not just Shandon right here. Let me go this way to start heading back where we need to go. Give you a little bit more perspective of the neighborhood. But you got Heathwood on the other side, you got Old Shandon over here. Now, again, just like Forest Acres, this isn't budget friendly. Like, these are pricey houses in this area. So don't think you're gonna come get a steal a deal. People are paying for the convenience over here. Again, this is one of those hidden districts that people online will be like, hey, like, don't live in Columbia, it's bad. But you meet any local over here and they absolutely love it. I know a ton of agents that actually live over here too. This is one area I tell my wife, like, I could see myself living here. Like, it's just, you get that, and you can see, like they like everybody. They like the Bills, they like the Gamecocks, they like Georgia, they like, can't pick, house divided right there. But either way, that's why this district is another hotspot that's hidden. And again, one of the most walkable areas in our area. I will say, Rosewood is a little bit more budget friendly. It's kind of on the other side, not as close to this, but they kind of got, there's parks over there, there's a skate park, it's a little closer to, there's a brewery over there, but Shandon is probably your most walkable here to Divine Street. And I forgot one of the most important things that makes it a hidden gem. So a lot of people are like, yeah, Brandon, but the schools. So interesting enough, I'm not trying to steer anyone in any direction here, do your research, but US News just put out an article and actually ranked the schools that Forest Acres and Shandon and some of those feed into higher than some of the ones in Lexington. That's right, do your research, but that's why I say there's a lot of hidden gems that people overlook just because online the Reddit forums, Facebook, they always hype the same neighborhoods. And so that's why I'm trying to give you this whole perspective. Just because everyone else says go here, and don't get me wrong, they're great places. You know, I live in Lexington and we'll talk about it when I get over there, but there's other places that I think people overlook because of that. So that's why I want to give you the full perspective and not miss a spot that it's like, oh, Brandon, that's where we were missing. All right, so now we're in downtown Columbia, and some days it's a pain in the butt to find parking, and you do have to pay for parking down here. Obviously, it's one of the big things about a downtown area. Sometimes it happens. But either way, I tell people, you know, I grew up in LA. We rarely went to downtown LA. You just didn't go there. That's the reality of it. But here, I like it because I call it kind of a small, big city, right? It's not so big that it's obnoxious and you never want to go down there and there's always traffic, but it's big enough that you can come down here, you know, grab a bite to eat. We do date nights down here. And I used to joke at night, you know, 5 Points is a college district. This is the mature district. And so it's a really cool downtown. You know, they do Soda City Market every Saturday out here where they shut the whole street down. Vendors come out here and all that stuff. So if you haven't come to downtown, definitely check it out. I get a lot of clients that are like, are we cool downtown? And they stay down here and then they are absolutely loving it. But we're gonna hit one more spot, and I know the Gervais Street Bridge where we started is right around the corner, but we still got to get the whole other side around Lake Murray. So let's get going that way, but we'll make one more stop before we head to the other side. All right, so real quick, wanted to swing by the Colonial Life Arena. With college in right now, there's like nowhere really to park, but concert venue out here. And on the other side, you also have the convention center. Now, I tell people it's a smaller concert venue. You still get good stuff in here. We almost caught Elton John on his farewell tour, but we didn't grab tickets in time. And there's a decent amount that come through. I've actually only been here for graduation myself, but this is also where USC plays basketball at. Last concert I went to, we actually went to Atlanta to see Luke Combs. Some bigger ones you might have to travel, but most of the smaller ones do still come through here. But that's why I wanted to swing by here, but let's continue on before I get a ticket for parking in the middle of the road. All right, so now we're over in West Columbia, and West Columbia is constantly on the up and coming areas. And it's been up and coming for a long time, just to be 100% honest. When we first moved here, I'll show you, this downtown strip was here, but it's definitely grown a lot. But all of this behind me over here did not exist. This was just open. But you got all these apartments, you got more restaurants, and then down there you got the Riverwalk. And then you got these kind of older mill houses, what they were down here. And you're seeing a lot of investors come in here and flip these houses and kind of upscale them. So I tell people this is kind of one of those areas when it's up and coming. Like I've had clients come down here and it's kind of mixed vibes, right? Because they're like, cool, love the downtown, love this district. The rest of it, not so polished, right? And so you're kind of in that transition, as you call it. But it's definitely gone through a massive transformation in the time we've been here. And it's one of the true walkable areas. And I'm going to be doing a video about all the walkable areas in the future. So you'll want to subscribe for that. But this is definitely one. Now, my personal experience coming down here and talking to people, a lot of young professionals, again, because these apartment complexes, they like the ability to be close to downtown, be able to come out here, and there's a big brewery, Savage Craft, behind here. And so right now feels very young professional in the area, but again, very much a changing vibe, very much growing. Now we're gonna head to KC next, and I'll drive you through downtown KC to see, and we'll talk about it when we get there, but let's go that direction. All right, so that was Casey's downtown. And as you can see, it's just not as lively as West Columbia. So when they talk about these areas up and coming, I always feel like Casey's just trying to reap that benefit of what West Columbia is doing. Now, with that said, that coffee shop that was down there, I don't remember that last time. So I feel like maybe it's starting to pick up a little bit. Now, I will say where I'm at right now, that we do come to KC for Steel Hands Brewing. This is our favorite brewery. Savage Crafts over there is good, don't get me wrong, but you know, they got this outdoor out here where they do concerts. They did a Halloween costume contest. They do it every year, and we actually won one year. They have a really good coffee lager here, and it's actually made with Loveland Coffee, local Loveland Coffee over in Irmo that we'll head to later. I could really go for one right now, 5 o'clock somewhere, right? No, I'm just kidding. It's because of coffee. I could really stop for coffee right now. But either way, like I said, I think they're just reaping the benefit when you talk about KC of West Columbia. I haven't had anyone actually purchase in KC myself, just being 100% honest. But either way, Steel Hands Brewing, definitely worth a check out. But let's keep going. Probably stop for coffee and the bathroom. So I'm not bougie with my coffee. I'll do me some gas station coffee. Now QT's is actually pretty good. They got the beans right there that brew it. I tell people I was an EMT for 10 years, so I have had some bad coffee. I am here for purpose, not for pleasure. I drink it black. As well, I tell people I don't usually stop for food. I mean, I'll do these days where I record like this all day, or when I'm out with clients, like some days we're showing all day, or I have a client in the morning, a client in the afternoon, and just don't stop. You know, being an EMT for 10 years, half the time on the ambulance, we were doing intermittent fasting before it was cool because you didn't have time to stop and eat. So I just don't. You know, in a pinch, don't get me wrong, go get me something off the roller grill. I had my healthy days where I didn't eat fast food in my late 20s and early 30s, but nowadays, you know, it is what it is. But I don't know. I don't. I got an apple over here. I thought I did somewhere, but coffee, that's what makes me go. All right, on to the next. All right, so we're out in Gaston now. Did I turn this on? Yeah. And so I'm going to talk about two different things. I'm going to talk about Gaston as well as other parts of what we're talking about, rural South Lexington, different than Red Bank. We're going to hit that later. Now, I've had clients buy in Gaston, but the other two areas out here, Pillion and Swansea, I get a lot of people that reach out because, just to be honest, new construction is starting to pop up a lot more in these areas. And of course, being more rural, the prices just appealing online. People are like, oh my goodness, what a great deal. But everyone I've had drive out to Pillion and Swansea, just being honest, just wasn't for them because it's very rural. And I think the tricky part I found is when you say that, a lot of people don't know what to perceive, right? I came from the West Coast where our rural was either right out in the desert, and you think of like West Texas, where it's just a whole lot of nothing desert and then randomly there's some houses. Or we had like the farmland where it's just farms, crops, and then randomly some houses. Or I lived on a ski resort for a season, and it was like a mile by a mile town, and then you just had houses kind of around. That was like my envision of rural. And then you get a lot of people that, you know, they've been through Kentucky, they've been outside of Nashville. It's like, okay, rolling fences, horse farms. Rural South rural is completely different, right? It's developed. There's houses within here, just the density isn't as much, a little bit more land, but the area was also built on the idea of your land, what you do what you want with it. Where there's a spot in Pillion, no joke, so you drive and there's a used car lot, there's a Mexican restaurant, then there's this beautiful farmhouse, like pretty new, on a bunch of acreage, and then there's a mobile home, and then there's, you know, older brick tiny ranch. So it's just kind of this hodgepodge mix, and a lot of people aren't used to that. But those that come from areas that are familiar with it, they're like, cool, I don't mind that. That's no big deal, a little bit more privacy. Now, with that said, I bring this up too, because obviously a lot of these older areas didn't have HOAs. Now, the new neighborhoods, with that said, same with over in Elgin, you're gonna get HOAs. Now, here's another mix that you see out here. And this is kind of, some people it's a big deal, some people it's not. Some people have watched, what's it called, Meet the Parents one too many times, they're like, no thanks. But you see some new construction on land. Now, if there's no public sewer, then they gotta have it on septic. And because of those drains field, they require them to have larger lots. And so, spam call, that's why you get a little bit larger lots. So again, some people, they don't mind the septic. Now, that's not all new construction in the area. Once public sewers ran, of course, they come out here and they start building on the public sewer. But Gaston, now different. I've had people buying Gaston, and their reasoning for Gaston was, even though it's more rural, they're okay with that more rural lifestyle. it's way closer to downtown Columbia. It's way closer to amenities. I mean, you're not even 30 minutes from downtown Columbia. If we went down to the Food Line, you could literally see on a clear day, you can see downtown Columbia. Where Pili and Swansea, you're just a ways out. It's way further from everything. So that's why. And another, I came to the Dollar Tree. This is Dollar Tree, but literally, this is what always is funny. People make jokes. You'll see comedians make jokes about it, but it's true, right? You drive into Swansea and you pull in and there's a Dollar General. Not even a mile later, there's a Dollar General Market. Like, I don't know who does real estate. I would love to have the real estate job for Dollar General Market because it's literally wherever dark can land, they'll put a Dollar General there. So again, a lot of people just don't know what Southern rural really means till they see it. Again, plenty of people have bought and gassed in, but not just personally, Pili and Swansea. I know I have friends that I worked with the ambulance that lived out there. They loved it. But a lot of out-of-towners just aren't used to that lifestyle and it's not what they envision. They're just looking at dollar signs on a new home and go, oh, I want that. Let's go. And again, my goal isn't to steer you in any way. Like I said, I've had clients buy in every single one of these areas. Outside, like I said, I was transparent about Camden. I haven't had anyone buy, and Casey. Outside of that, I've had clients buy in all these areas. My goal has just always been, as someone who relocated here, not be the sales pitch channel that's just like, oh, it's so great here. Like, give you the true transparency of what people liked and what they didn't like. So that way, as you're trying to make a decision about this, you can have a more clear perspective than just a sales pitch. So if you're not subscribed already, I hope you do, because I wanna make sure to educate and share the best information possible for those considering relocating to the area. But let's head to the next spot. All right, so we're pulling into downtown Gilbert. This is our next stop. And I'm gonna flip the camera and show you downtown Gilbert, and then we're actually gonna head somewhere else because I think this will give you a different perspective than where people are actually buying in Gilbert, and you'll see what I mean. So let me flip this, but don't blink. All right, thank you for visiting the big town of Gilbert. I'm just kidding, kind of. But literally, there's nothing, right? The elementary school, the middle school, and the high school were to the left where I turned right. But there's really not much up there, just to be 100% honest. And so that's why I'm gonna take you somewhere else. Because again, the perception of that may be like, I don't get it, Brandon. I thought this was like the next big area. So let me go to where you can get a better perspective and I'll fill in those gaps. All right, so let's try this again. This is Gilbert that I think a lot of people are talking about online and envisioning, right? Yes, there is that town of Gilbert that we drove through, very small. But when I have people come into town and looking at the Gilbert area, they're looking at one of two spots for me at least. A, it's gonna be these new construction neighborhoods out here. And you got a bunch of them. And you can see they got land out here for a while because this used to be all farmland out here. And you got a couple different neighborhoods. But the benefit is being a little bit more rural still, you're talking right around that 300,000 point. Some even in the 200s. I mean, there's some at like 199 over here too on townhomes. And so a lot of people attract to that because we're only 15 minutes from downtown Lexington, as well just a couple minutes up the road. They're building a brand new Target shopping center. So you can be a little bit more rural, your money goes further, but not so far out as some of these other rural areas we were talking about. Now, the other part that I have people in Gilbert buy is over by the lake, because Gilbert runs all the way down to the lake. And so you got some lake neighborhoods over there, you got homes on the lake. And so that's really what I call Gilbert when I'm talking to people out the area versus the downtown. And so I know it can get confusing, and I only go on this tangent a little bit because this happens all over our area, right? There are town limits, there's zip codes that make up areas, and can be confusing when people are trying to research it because they're like, oh, Gilbert seems like a small town. It's like, yes, but you you got to look at the zip codes as well. This happens a lot in Irmo, and we'll talk about more when we go over there, Chapin, Lexington, and so many others. But this is what I see as Gilbert when I'm out here showing clients, is these new construction and over by the lake. Anyways, let's move on to the next spot. All right, so now we're out here in Batesburg, Leesville. And now personally, everyone I've had by in Batesburg, Leesville is out over by the lake, right? You know, you got neighborhoods like Harbor Watch out there and so many more. But with that said, we had a neighbor that moved out here, and this is one of the areas that locally a lot of people are hyping up as the next big thing, right? Because you got this quaint downtown here. You know, you got some really good restaurants, Chili's Barbecue if you haven't been out here. And so they're putting a lot of money into this area. So it'll be interesting to see if it actually kind of takes off. Now, the tricky part I tell people about this area is we're probably, you know, 30 minutes downtown Lexington and over 45 minutes from downtown Columbia. So that's where it gets tricky. The further out you get, trying to commute back just gets harder and harder. But I did want to swing by here because, again, if you live on some of these lake areas further out that we'll talk about in a little bit, you got your Walmart over here, you got restaurants and shops and things like that. So you don't per se have to go all the way back to Lexington. If you live out here, you have this stop right here. But otherwise, our next stop is the longest drive we're gonna have, getting to the other side of the lake. But I'm gonna make a stop on the way there and talk about something really important that we need to talk about. So let's get going because this is a long drive, but important stuff on the way. Let's go. What's the law if a light doesn't change in a certain period of time that you can run it? Because I'm about to, oh, finally, goodness, that took way too long. I ain't got time for this, but finally gave me, that took a couple minutes, I ain't gonna lie. And there ain't no one here. Makes no sense. I mean, literally, like 5 minutes. And it's like a, whatever. Someone tell me the law. After how long can you run a red light and use it as a stop sign? I know there's a law for this. Someone's law enforcement. I know I got clients that are law enforcement. Tell me. All right, so I stopped out here because we are on the far west side of Lake Murray. And this can be a little bit confusing because inland, we don't cover Saluda and we don't cover Newberry, but we cover Saluda County and Newberry County when it comes to Lake Murray. And the reason I bring this up is because I have had people buy out this direction, have sold houses out this direction, because your money just goes that much further, right? Your average price once you get towards Lexington, Chapin, and Irmo is close to $1 million. Where out here, your average price is closer to $600,000. So a lot of people looking for the lake, it attracts them. But here's the big thing of why I want to stop here, because of how far we are. So you're probably, I would say, 40 minutes to downtown Lexington, maybe a little bit less, and we're still a good 30 minutes to Chapin, where we're headed next. Now, of course, you have Prosperity and these others, and I did a driving tour out here and drove through those areas. So you can see little grocery stores and things like that, but your main stuff is going to be that way. And even more so, you're over an hour to downtown Columbia. So if you got to commute to downtown Columbia, it's a long ways from here. And so that's the thing I bring up, especially because, you know, we're at the tip here, and you're talking still another 10, 15 minutes into some of these coves when we're out showing houses on the lake out here. So that's why I want to bring it up, just because I do have a lot of people that reach out and just see how far their money goes out this way. But there's also some critical things to know. You know, I've had people out here that are retired, or they work from home, or they don't have to commute to Columbia, and they love it because their money goes further. They like that rural setting. They don't mind the drive back to everything. A little bit more peaceful out here. And like I said, your money goes further. But let's continue on to Chapin next. All right, let's talk about bad drivers. It gets brought up a lot because I think I might have just seen someone get pulled over. Can't tell. There was a cop over on the side of the road. I wasn't going too fast. My wife says I drive like a grandma. I don't speed that much. But this guy was flying trying to pass somebody on these 2-lane roads. And so I don't know if he got rolled on. But it brings up a point, right? I drive a lot. And yeah, I mean, they're ranked bad. I've actually witnessed probably 3 car accidents as a real estate agent. 2 of them I stopped for. They were kind of right in front of me. And another one, it was on the other side. I couldn't stop, but I watched it. And it was just like, you couldn't stop. So yeah, I mean, it's a reality. They're not great. Now, I grew up in California and they weren't great there either. You were stuck in traffic all the time. So it was hard to be a bad driver because you could only go so fast. Where here you got all these 2-lane open roads and, you know, these in-town areas, and people just, you know, the accidents I saw were just bad drivers. Like, people will blame the roads, but it was bad drivers, straight bad drivers. Like, that's the reality. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. All right, welcome to Chapin. Welcome back to suburbia. We have left rural America. Now let me talk about Chapin, because Chapin to me is the one area that I always say feels like a mountain town coming from California. Lived in a mountain town, because essentially you got your kind of town square here. And as you see, you know, kind of quaint little shops and stuff like that. You got your grocery stores, you got your Ace Hardware. And then from there, you got all these 2-lane coves that run out to where all the housing is. And so that's why I say it feels like a mountain town with all the mountains. Now, this is one thing that comes up a lot. People are like, you know, Lexington or Chapin, which one's better? If you talk to people out in Chapin, they're gonna tell you Chapin is better. And you talk to people in Lexington, they're gonna say Lexington's better. You know, it's whichever one clicks best with you. You know, the clients I've had that buy out in Chapin, they absolutely love it, right? And the big thing is probably there's a lot of lake neighborhoods out here. You know, you got Palmetto Shores out here, and you got so many other that Timberlake, right? Golf course neighborhood right there on the water. And so that's what a lot of people like about it. It just truly feels like that lake life out here. As well, you got the public boat ramps out here too that you can hit free year round. So even if you don't live in a lake neighborhood, you can still hit the lake. And so again, that's why a lot of people like it. Now, what are the cons of it? Again, like I talked about, 2-lane roads. And so those that have to get back to Columbia, you're talking without traffic, probably a 30-minute commute just to get to downtown Columbia. But traffic can pick up really easily between here and Columbia. As well too, like I said, very small town feel. Now, a lot of people like that. They like the more mom and pop shop restaurants, things like that. But those that are, you know, I want the Costco, I want the bigger stuff, you're having to head back to Harbison, where we're headed next. And so you'll kind of see what that drive is from here to here, which is kind of why I planned this way, to give you that perspective. So that's why I say, people that love Chapin. And so that's why I tell people it's not a which one is better, it's which vibe fits you better, because they are both very different. We'll talk about them when we head over to Lexington, what Lexington feels like versus Chapin. But hopefully this gave you a better perspective of the area. But let's get moving back towards, again, the Harbison area in Irmo, so you can kind of see what that drive is. All right, so I took that longer way intentionally because I want to show you something here after I pass Wessinger. I'm going to turn this around, but talking about the coves, because to give you an idea, so if you're out at Timberlake is down the cove past downtown Chapin. So, you know, you're 10, 15 minutes from downtown Chapin, and then you're taking the interstate back towards where we're headed now. Now, if you're down Wessinger, right, that's going to be where Palmetto Shores is, Chapin Place, Pebble Branch, the new Mungo neighborhood, those ones. You're going to be coming out Wessinger and then heading this 2-lane road I'm about to show you towards the interstate this way. Now, if you want to get to downtown Chapin, you can take Old Lexington, about 10 minutes at your grocery stores. But wanting to give you this perspective of if you live down these coves, what reality is going to be like getting back towards these bigger areas. So let me turn this around so you can see what I'm driving. All right, welcome to Irmo. And I know what you're probably thinking, Brandon, you're at a mall. If you've done any research online, you're probably like, I thought Irmo was this kind of tree-lined street, older houses. And that answer is yes, but I found Irmo to be one of the places that people get most confused about online. And we'll dive into it, trust me, because there is that. And why it gets so confusing, and I'll help you alleviate all that confusion in this, is because of what I talked about over in Gilbert, right? So the Irmo, if you look up Irmo, it's a very small area, but that isn't all of Irmo. Now, if you do zip codes, Irmo, it's not gonna be all of Irmo either. It's made of a part Columbia zip codes, part Irmo zip codes, part Richland County, part Lexington County. And so it makes it very confusing to actually hone in on the area. And so I think that's why when people search it and you look at densities on these sites, it's not giving you the full picture of this entire area. Now, my best explanation of Irmo from an outside perspective, then there's two sides of Irmo, and I'll break that down to you. But this side of the interstate where I'm at right now, this is older suburban sprawl. So kind of like what you had over in Northeast Columbia, but think 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s houses versus those being newer construction master plan communities. And so in these neighborhoods, that's where you're gonna have, you know, the neighborhoods like Whitehall, Friars Gate, Quail Valley, and all those. No HOA, 60s, 70s, 80s house, tree-lined streets, character, and all that. You'll have pools in there, but they're not community pools. They're private pools that anybody in the area can pay to join. You know, Quail Valley even has like tennis courts, pickleball courts, and things like that. So very different than what you get in Northeast Columbia. So inside those neighborhoods, yes, you're gonna get that very classic suburban feel, but outside, it's like, whoa, this is all very commercialized, and it is. I tell people there's no like downtown. I get a lot of people that are like, Brandon, we drove around, we saw the mall, we saw Harbison Boulevard, but where's downtown Irmo? And it's like, well, that's it. They have Irmo Community Park where they do their yearly Okra Strut, they do festivals over there, but there's no downtown. They tried to create one. It's a long story, not gonna get into this, talked about in other videos, but there isn't one. And so that's where it confuses a lot of people. Now, like I said, there's two sides of Irmo I talk about. There's the other side of the interstate. And before I forget, on the other side of the interstate is our one and only Costco. That's right, we have one Costco in the area. There's plenty of Sam's Club if you want Sam's Club, but there's one Costco and it's right on the other side of the interstate from where we are. Now, I talked about earlier too, before I forget, Trader Joe's over in Forest Acres. The rumor is the second Trader Joe's is gonna be somewhere right over here. One of these shops over here is my understanding is gonna be the next Trader Joe's. Now, the other side, and this is why this is important, why I bring it out. The other side of the interstate is a little more rural, a little more trees, less densely developed as this side over here. It's where neighborhoods like Ascot are. Newer neighborhoods like River Shoals. So a little bit newer of that suburban feel with those neighborhoods over here versus, like I said, 60s, 70s, 80s over here. Those are gonna have that newer touch and feel to it, with some older mixed in there, don't get me wrong. And I call that area the best of both worlds. And what do I mean by that? So I get clients all the time and, you know, one couple's like, you know, I don't really want to be in the middle of the suburbs. I'm trying to get away from everybody. And the other person in the couple is like, oh, but I don't want to drive 40 minutes to shopping like we talked about in some of these rural areas. That's where that side is what I call the best of both worlds. Because again, you feel more rural, but you're 15 minutes from Costco, future Trader Joe's, and the mall. So you can get all your shopping done, we're still having that rural feel. Now, with that said, price difference, right? This side of Irmo, money goes further with those older established areas than per se you're gonna see in like Shandon and Forest Acres where the price is higher. So that's why a lot of people attract to Irmo. Money goes a little bit further to get those older historic neighborhoods. Not historic, let me correct myself because I talk about that and there are historic neighborhoods in Columbia. But I mean older established. Irmo is not a historic district, so you can still do what you want with your house. But where was I going with that? Oh, but the other side, the Ascot, that side, a little more pricey. And so even though a little bit more rural, get that space, you're paying a bit more for that. Now, here is what I tell people that are searching the area. Like I said, I'm gonna help you isolate this. All of my clients, when they're trying to isolate this area, again, if you're searching zip codes, if you're searching cities, you're not gonna see it all. Whether it matters to you or not, search based on high schools. So this area is gonna be zoned for both Irmo High School and Dutch Fork High School. Dutch Fork High School is mainly the other side, but some of it does cross over to this side. So do both. And that's the best way to isolate what we are truly showing people as Irmo. That's how I do it to my clients, because again, even our MLS area, it includes St. Andrews, which is completely different than Irmo. And so that's where I tell people that's the best way to isolate. So hopefully that clears up some of the confusion of Irmo. I know it's not entirely gonna do it. There's only so much I can cover in one video and we only have so much time, but that is the best way I can describe Irmo, is again, that suburban sprawl, but older version of it. Let's head to the next spot. All right, so I couldn't tour all of Columbia and not stop at Lake Murray at the dam. So obviously this is a big reason people reach out to our area for is Lake Murray. It's a 50,000 acre lake. That's right, it's massive. It spans through 4 counties. Like I talked about earlier, to give you an idea, on the rural counties out there, Saluda and Newberry, you're closer to that $600,000 on average. But on this Lexington, Irmo and Chapin side of Lake Murray, on the water, you're talking closer to average around $1 million. But obviously there's lake neighborhoods throughout the entire area. And then of course you got the public access to it. So the one I'm at right now is the main one, the North Lake one. So the dam, let me show you. So the dam runs 1.7 miles from here to there. So it's a 5K there and back. And on this side, you have the big boat ramp, the big boat launch. As you can see, you got like kayak launches, paddleboard launches, and things like that. During the season, you pay to get in here. Right now, the guard's gone, so you can come in here for free. On the other side of the dam, so you got year-round, there's a parking lot that you can park and you can walk the dam for free. That's open year-round for free. Right past that, there's another park, and that one is only open during the season. And that one is more picnic tables, and then they got like it buoyed off. You can go swimming. We've taken the kids down there, so you're not worried about the boats rushing back and forth like you would be over here because of it. Again, obviously a big highlight for the area. Big question I get asked, it just got asked this week, alligators. So they're not native to our area. Yeah, you'll see rumors about them on, oh, someone's all gator out here, but they're not native to our area. They're coastal plains animals. So head towards Charleston, go out to Hilton Head, and you'll see some gators. Out here, I've never personally seen one. I've been on this lake more times than I can count. No, I don't live on the lake. People have asked. I have friends that live on the lake, but Lake Murray. And I'll tell you, like, there are times, this parking lot cool, that's why I stopped by. There are times at the end of the day that I'll just come and pull in and enjoy this. Like I think I've talked about in so many videos, my wife and I are very much beach people. We love the water. And Charleston was, we'll talk about it when we get to where I live. Charleston was too expensive for us. And I didn't know how I'd feel about like the lake. But there's something, I don't know, just very peaceful out here. You know, it would be cool to live on the lake. My wife and I have talked about like, all right, what's your dream? I'm doing an interview series and I'm talking to people, what's your dream area? And it's, I'll be honest, two places for me. There's a lot of places I would live. I talked about Shandon School, but if money wasn't an issue, Lake Murray, all right, maybe Charleston, right? But for sure, Lake Murray. It's just, I mean, how can you not enjoy this? But let's get to Lexington and let's get going. I think we're gonna make it. I'm looking at the clock. I was a little worried earlier if we were gonna make it, but I think we're going to. That's why I made this stop. All right, welcome to Lexington. Some of y'all have been patiently waiting for these next couple stops here for a while, and I appreciate that. I hope you've learned a lot along the way. But obviously Lexington is one of the big areas that we get a lot of people that reach out for. A lot of our clients do end up buying in Lexington. Now, with that said, it encompasses a lot when we say Lexington, right? And this is what I talked about with Gilbert and I talked about with Irmo, right? So you have the town of Lexington, which is where we're at right now. We're downtown Lexington. But you also have zip codes that encompass Lexington. You're gonna be the 29072 and 29073, which is actually where we're headed next, the 29073 part. So stick around for that side because we get a lot of people that buy over there. But of course, when you're also talking about Lexington, you're talking about the school district, right? Again, not trying to steer anybody in any direction, but you get a lot of people that reach out for Lexington One School District. A lot of you tell me on some of these sites, highly rated. And so that's gonna be River Bluff High School over here, Lexington High School, as well as Gilbert High School, Gilbert where we were earlier, White Knoll High School over by the South Lexington part that we're headed to after this, right? So that's why I say also encompasses Gilbert. So that's where it can be a little bit confusing when we talk about Lexington itself. Now, what are the big pros of why people reach out to this area? And then what are the reasons that they don't. So obviously big pros are gonna be that true suburbia feel, right? Lots of new construction neighborhoods. You got this downtown where I'm walking right now, right? The amphitheater where they do concerts, they do events, they do so much more. And we do live in Lexington, we live on the other side. I'll talk about that when we get over there, but we come down here all the time. Now, it's changed a lot since we moved here. The amphitheater wasn't here. There wasn't as many restaurants and shops and things like that. But you know, you come out here now and you got Barrio's Taco behind me, Taco Sushi over here. They're about to open Voodoo Brewing across the street. Nikki's Pizzeria is really good. You got O'Hara's Public House up the way. And then they just opened, we haven't been here yet, but Ember, it's a fancy, steak kind of house place. So there's just a lot that's grown in this area over the years. And so a lot of this attracts people to the area. And then again, like I said, you got these new construction neighborhoods with amenities and they're all over the place, different prices, different styles, and so much more. Now, what are the reasons that I've heard people say, this wasn't for me? Because just to be honest, there has been some. So I would say probably the biggest one is going to be traffic, right? Being that it's grown so fast, infrastructure just haven't kept up. You've probably seen in the comment section. Now, I tell people all the time, you know, I drive around basically for a living. It's all I do is I drive. And so with that, it's timing, you know, there are certain times of the day, absolutely obnoxious. You're just sitting in nonstop traffic. But I tell my clients that are retired, you're probably gonna be like, what is all this traffic people talk about? Because it's only certain times of the day. Outside of that, it's very manageable, in my opinion, to get around. So yes, it is a big deal. I'm not, again, trying to sell you on Lexington, come check it out yourself. I'm just kind of giving you my personal perspective. Two, the biggest reasons I get a lot of people that end up not liking this. We get a lot of people that reach out and they want walkable neighborhoods. They're like, hey, where's that neighborhood where I could walk, ride my bike, take, you know, the kids to go get ice cream and stuff like that. And the reality is here in Lexington, all of my clients that have bought here are car dependent. Again, I talked about, I'm gonna be doing a video where I take you to kind of what are the walkable neighborhoods, and I'll show you what's walkable around here, but it's just not what my clients envision when they think of these areas. It's much, you know, like I said, Shandon, you can do that. You can walk out to those areas, but it's those older, you know, older established neighborhoods where a lot of people are looking for those newer neighborhoods, the amenities, but they wanna walk, and that's, you just don't have that here. So that's probably the biggest things that I have people that draw away from the area. But again, tons of perks, that proximity to Lake Murray, the school districts, same with the, and I'll say it just so I don't forget, we get brought up a lot on Lexington Richland 5, which is going to be over Chapin, Dutch Fork, those schools over there. So again, there's a lot of reasons that attract people to this area. But again, there's reasons that people like other parts that, like I said, we've sold clients in every area that we've been to today, basically. There's not one area, that's what's tricky. I tell people this. We get people that reach out all the time. They're like, hey, Brandon, I just want a nice area, a nice neighborhood. Where should I buy? And it's like, it's not that simple. And I hope that's the perspective I wanted to give in this. There's so many different areas and so many different styles and vibes. And I can find you a nice house in a nice neighborhood in any of these spots, but it really determines which area do you like best? That's what's most important, because the area is truly what's gonna make or break it, right? If you don't like where you live, then it doesn't matter if I found you the perfect house, because you're gonna walk outside your door and say, my gosh, this place sucks. Because of whatever reason, it's too rural, there's too much traffic, it's too city, it's too this, right? That matters more than that house. And so that's why I wanted to give you this full perspective. And again, we're not done yet. We still got some more places to hit, but that's why I wanted to give you this full perspective so you could see all the different areas and all the different options out here. So hopefully you can better decide which one is right for you. But in the end of the day, I tell people all the time this too. Things look different in person than they do online. Not just the houses, I get that too, but the areas, right? You know, you're only getting these 10-second glimpses of when I'm driving and these, you know, highlights of where I'm walking right here. But really getting a feel for the area oftentimes changes people's perspective. I've had clients that when they called, they're like, Brandon, it's Irmo. And we showed up and they drove around and they said, just kidding, it's not Irmo, and they moved to Blythewood. Others that were like, it's Lexington, Brandon, everything we've seen, it's Lexington. and they bought in Chapin, or they bought in Northeast Columbia, right? It just happens that way. And so that's why I tell people, this is gonna give you a good perspective. It'll help you when you get to town to narrow things down, but you really gotta get your eyes on the ground to get that better perspective. But again, we're not entirely done yet. We still have some areas to check out. So let's go hit the road. We still got some sun. That was my worry, that I was gonna lose sun. I started right as the sun rose this time of year. Obviously you don't only get so many hours of sun, but let's head to the next areas because we ain't done yet. All right, so welcome to South Lexington, Red Bank, White Knoll. Let me break down what that means for those first learning about the area, and then I'll get into it. So South Lexington, like we talked about, 29073, south part of Lexington. Red Bank, when you pull up Google Maps, you'll see Red Bank. It's just a census designated area. It's not a city, it's not a town, it's just census designated, and it shows up on Google, so people call it Red Bank. And then White Knoll, because you're zoned for White Knoll High School. And now you may say, Brandon, you're hanging out in a Walmart parking lot. Yes, this is the kind of town where you hang out in a Walmart parking lot. And I can make that joke because I live over here. Now, let me give you a backstory of how we ended up here, and hopefully that'll give you perspective of the area. So when we first moved here, to give you an idea, I was working as an EMT at the time. We didn't own in California. We weren't one of those that sold house and had a bunch of equity and come here and buy. I was working as an EMT. We didn't make a lot of money. My wife started a new job when we were out here. And so our options were limited when it came to where we could live. And what we liked about Lexington, and specifically the Red Bank area. Now, again, this was 10 years ago. It's a lot different now, and I'll talk about that. But at that point in our lives, we were sick of the busy city suburbia life that we had in California. And I know people say it's busy out here, but trust me, there was no stone unturned in that town. And so we were tired of that. And I joke, I tell people, I'm a very feeling person when it comes to music. And when we came out here, like, country songs made sense. They didn't make sense when you're stuck in gridlock traffic in California, but they made sense when you came to Red Bank. And we liked that because it was like, you had that more country feel, but in the same accord, we were in a subdivision. We wanted to be in a neighborhood. We liked that idea. And right around the corner, you still had your Walmart, you had Lowe's, you had grocery stores and things like that. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. And it wasn't too far from Columbia, and it wasn't too far from downtown Lexington. And so that's how we ended up here. Now, fast forward. We had our second child and we ended up staying in the area because a lot came available in the same neighborhood we live, new construction, backed up to a pond. And like I talked about, we're beach people, we love water. And so it just, boom, it worked and we stayed there. Obviously since then, I've gotten into real estate, been doing this for 7 years now. And our options and varieties are different of our choices. But one of the big things that I've found hard, and you've seen in this tour, is if I packed up and moved today, there hasn't been anywhere that's gotten me to let me list my house and move. There are plenty of phenomenal areas around here. I love Lake Carolina because, again, we got kids now. And so you start to think about, okay, now I get why suburbia made sense, because we like to ride bikes, take the kids out and do a walk and things like that. And you can't do that over here like you can in some of these neighborhoods. So Lake Carolina is always like, that's an awesome place. Shandon, like I said, I always tell my wife, how cool would it be if we could take the kids and we could just go walk to Cantina 76? We could walk to these places, right? There's so many areas that I like, but none of them have ever been like, we need to pack up and move. I brought up Charleston. I'll talk about, I'm doing another updated Charleston versus Columbia Greenbelt. Traffic, if you think traffic's bad here, go to Charleston, my goodness. And then hurricanes, those are the two big reasons, but I'll talk about it more when we talk about that. But it was too expensive when we first moved here. But so either way, fast forward now, this area's grown a lot. Now, there's still no quote unquote downtown. It's all just these chain stores, right? Now you have, since we moved here, the Publix that opened up, where they got the Chick-fil-A over there. There's a brand new Lowe's shopping center that's opening over there, Lowe's Grocery, and they're gonna have a Planet Fitness in there. They already got the Chipotle. And, you know, so it's just grown a lot since we've moved here. And so a lot of people attract this area because your money goes further than the north side of Lexington, a little bit more budget friendly. And I'm gonna take you somewhere after this and show you. But there's a lot of things that attract people this area. And the same reason I think a lot of, like I said, you get the perks of Lexington because it's only 15 minutes up the road to hit all those, the amphitheater and all that. And we do that, like I said, date nights down there. But it's not as expensive. It's not nearly as expensive. And so that's what attracts people to this area as well. And so that's kind of in a nutshell. Now, again, what are the cons of it? I live here, I get it. Like I said, this is a hangout at Walmart kind of town. What do I mean by that? It's still very rural. It's, you know, not as polished as Lexington. Yeah, you got new construction neighborhoods, but you also got these non-HOA neighborhoods, mobile home parks, kind of variety of different stuff going on. Like, it's not as polished, and some people don't care for that. You know, I've had clients that come over here, and this is where it's hard, where they're like, you know, would you live there? I have clients that come to my side of town, and they're like, I wouldn't live there. It's like, well, I live here, right? And so that's where it's hard. Like, we can help guide you, absolutely. So reach out. But that's where it's, you know, tricky, and it comes to asking a lot more questions to figure out what area fits you best. But again, let me take you to somewhere over here. I want to show you something before we head to the next spot. So let's go check it out and I'll talk more. All right, so I came up to the Bluefield neighborhood on this side of town because, just being honest, I've sold more homes in this neighborhood than any other. And it's unique because the reality is, and I'll tell you the other neighborhoods, top neighborhoods I've sold homes in, we're not an area where everybody flocks to one neighborhood. You know, it's rare outside of some of these big master plan communities that we sell 2 homes in that same neighborhood. Now, what are the other ones that I've sold a lot in? And this is kind of just going geographically versus numbers. I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me, but Longview on this side of town, sold a ton in that neighborhood. Bar Lake, sold a couple over in that neighborhood. Lake Carolina, sold a ton over in that neighborhood. Wood Creek Farms, have a bunch over in that neighborhood. As well as Grand Arbor over in Blythewood. So as you can see, kind of variety different. So that's why I tell people, like, what neighborhood is best? I mean, there's a bunch. Ascot, I've sold a couple over in that neighborhood. And that's where it's tricky, right? Because there's not always one neighborhood everybody flocks to. There's a variety and a mix. But of course, I did want to take you up here while I was over here. Give you kind of that perspective of, you can have that rural life over here and still have that. Now, I don't live over here. People always ask, oh, do you live over there? I don't even think this neighborhood was being built. I'd have to think back when we built our house. I think it started shortly after that. In their first phase, I sold a home, and that was a couple years after I got into real estate. So I don't think this was being built back then. But either way, let's continue on. We're almost done, people. We're almost there. Home stretch. All right, welcome to Columbia Metro Airport. Hopefully we'll catch a plane landing. That'd be cool. I love watching planes fly, take off, and all that. But I hate flying. Now, with that said, we haven't actually flown out of Columbia Metro ourselves, and it's not because I hate flying. It's because normally when we're traveling, we're going west, and so this is a metro airport. People ask about it all the time. We don't have an international airport. People ask if I've heard rumors about becoming an international airport. I have not. We get surveys in the mail all the time, and of course, everybody's biggest thing is international airport, but I haven't heard anything about it. I have my notes here because, again, we haven't flown out of here. I've had clients that have, and they absolutely love it. It's an easy airport to get in and out of. But American, Delta, United, and Allegiant, that's who flies out of here. Now, the other month, couple months back, Spirit Airlines started flying out of here, but that was very short-lived. I can hear a plane. I want to see it take off. That'd be so cool, right? Spirit Airlines showed up here, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and they're not here anymore. So, you know, people always ask about expansions out here. I don't know, but it's an easy airport I've been told to get in and out of. It is metro. Your closest internationals are going to be Charlotte, like I talked about earlier, Charleston, about the same distance, depending on where you live, and then Atlanta's about 3 hours away. Little plane, that's what it was. There's a little plane landing. All right, let me take you through the airport real quick here. Let you see it. You know, if I stop for too long, they're gonna arrest me. So let me give you a quick glance. Delta, United, American. Like I said, small airport, nothing big, nothing too busy. Easy to get in and out of. Like I said, my clients all love it. We're going too far when we're flying, so not what we need, but nice little airport. Well, my friends, guess what? We did it. With 2 hours to spare, go us. Did I give it everything you need to reach out now? I mean, I hope so, because I'm ready to go home to my wife and kids, have some dinner and go to bed. I mean, you can continue to binge watch Brandon over here, but I'm headed home. I mean, I probably got some emails to follow up on at this point. It's been a minute since I checked. But I hope you learned a lot today. See you on the next episode.